Hello and welcome to episode 3 of GOFIE German Old Fart in England. So today is a bit of a weird thing because I've been living abroad for 21 years and I have gotten used to all the things I'm going to mention on this list. But when you offer them to someone from Germany, they will probably just go like, what the fuck is this? Right? So here's a list of 10 things that Germans normally wouldn't eat or don't understand. And that would also be something that would never really go down well in Germany. Definitely would not be something that would sell well, right? So anyway, here's the list of things that Germans will never eat that the English really love. You put what? You put milk in tea? Are you out of your mind? True. In Germany, we would never put milk in tea. As a matter of fact, this topic already came up over the 20 years I'm away, and a lot of people tell me that they think it is an assault on your taste buds, which is exactly what I thought when I first came across it. Now, I came across it when I was 12. When I was 12 years old, we lived in Saudi Arabia, and one of those days we lived in the camp, and then my father said, "Oh, we're going from the camp to a bigger city, which was called Tabuk," and so the whole family went to Tabuk, and then for whatever reason there was a meeting of sorts, and my father said, "Well, you kids, you stay with the English," or the British as he called them. So yeah, so we did. And you have to remember, I lived in Saudi Arabia as a child, and so it is really, really warm there, and so we were all asking for pop. You have anything to drink? And then the English will tell us, in their own dry, monotonous style, "Oh, you really wouldn't want anything cold to drink, darling." That kind of stuff. Because I remember that very well, the first time I ever met an English person in person. So anyway, so they told us that what you ought to drink in the summer, at least that's what they told us in Saudi Arabia. Granted, they might as well just taking the piss. What do I know? But they were basically offering us tea. And so eventually we said yes. And obviously they brought tea with biscuits, really important, right? But when the tea came, we were 3 kids, we were looking at other things like something is really off here, because there was obviously milk in tea. And to this day, wherever I go, when I order a regular tea, I stop them before they make the tea for me and tell them no milk, which in their mind then translates into, well, it's not an ordinary tea then, is it? I think because a lot of people here, every time I say to them, like, would like to have a regular tea, which we call black tea in Germany, without milk, they then offer me herbal tea. No, I want a black tea, a regular tea, just with no milk. So it is one of those things where the cultures are so different that you can't even explain it. So since I'm a coffee drinker anyway, most of the time I do not even order regular black tea, whatever you want to call it these days, right? And again, it's not something that the Germans would do under any circumstances. Milk in tea, to most Germans, just sounds plain wrong. Well, okay then, here's something that might not be a thing everywhere in the UK, but I have not seen this when I lived with the Irish, and certainly never come across it. I've never come across it in Germany. Battered Mars bar, putting a Mars bar, put batter on it and put it in a... No, why? Disgusting. Not a thing to do at all. What can I say? Literally, this is my experience with the English. Anything edible that fits on bread goes on bread. That simple. And the one or the two things that that sort of stand out for me, that in Germany no one would ever put on their bread is two things. Number one, chips. You put chips on bread, and then oftentimes people still use the condiments with them. It's just not something there's logic to food, obviously, and the German sensibilities just wouldn't understand that. It's like, why? You want to have a bun or roll or whatever you call it, have it next to your chips, but don't put the chips on bread and eat it. Doesn't make sense. So that's the one thing. And the other thing, obviously, is crisps on bread. It makes no sense at all. So I came across this a lot in the UK, and to this day, it's not something I partake in or I do. And it's one of those things where most Germans would just shake their heads and go like, the English are absolutely insane. The one thing that is so weird, and it has only changed slightly, in that there were many years, both in Dublin and here in England, where people wouldn't even ask me. And now in recent years, very likely because there's more foreigners here now, people ask. So, vinegar on chips is not a thing that would ever happen in Germany. So you have salt and vinegar on chips, and oftentimes you order, fish and chips, for instance, and you're not even being asked. They just put salt and vinegar on it because that's very likely what the majority of people want, or it's just a cultural thing that they do. And years and years ago, I started stopping people, saying like, no vinegar, please, right? And someone even asked me, seriously, if I'm unwell, just because I didn't like the vinegar. He might actually have a point, because in recent years, probably 2 or 3 years, I actually do enjoy vinegar on chips now. So I don't know what's wrong with me. Maybe I'm not well. One of my favorite things ever is baked beans. Absolutely love them. And I've seen some shops in Germany, normally close to airports, that have baked beans, which is a bit weird because people say Heinz must be a German company, Heinz beans on toast. And point is, baked beans on toast are not a thing. Baked beans on their own aren't really a thing in Germany either. But we would never have baked beans on toast simply because they make the toast soggy. Now, I cannot even remember the hundreds of times I had to say to someone, could I please have beans and toast? And they look at me and say, well, could you just put the beans in a little bowl? So I say, beans in a bowl and toast. And it takes the English a good while to tweak. Why am I not having it? But English being very polite people, they normally just do it. And then they normally make a point when they bring it to you. Say like, oh, you are the gentleman that wanted baked beans in a bowl and toast. And it's like, and it's in a bowl. It's just like, because you're the mental one. You can just see it. Anyway, so like I said, baked beans are not really a thing in Germany, and anything that is very liquid and sauce-ish kind of thing, you would never have on toast. Not in Germany, not ever. While occasionally you see people who are on building sites, right, have instant coffees or teas, that's really just happening in places like this. And even there, you normally have an office where they have what we call a proper coffee machine. So obviously I've been away for 21 years, so I obviously, you know, there's coffee available here in England that I could get, but I've gotten so used to instant coffee that I actually, you know, developed a taste for it, so it doesn't bother me anymore. But for most people, well, actually for everybody, all my German friends and family, every time, each single time they came over to England or Ireland, where I used to live before I moved here, you offer them instant coffee. They think you don't want them to be there, because coffee, we're not a tea drinking nation. We do love our coffee, and coffee is sort of a sacred drink in Germany. That's when you actually bond. You know, you have your cake and whatever you have, or even your breakfast. But coffee is really, really important to most Germans. So, and that's the one thing I noticed. You give them instant coffee, which is a massive difference in taste. Not just in texture, but in taste, because obviously the coffee that you actually properly make with a coffee machine or by hand is much stronger. It is, I don't know, it's just made with love, I suppose. So every time I visit Germany, I drink all the coffee I can find, and normally you find me in my sister's kitchen, which is where I mostly stay when I visit Germany. And, you know, empty all the cupboards, because they also have these machines where you have little lattes and stuff, you know, but they're different. Even though we have instant lattes and stuff and you know, cappuccinos, they do taste differently, because you put them in to a machine, and the machine mixes them, just like, you know, you go to one of those, you know, any shop that you go that has a coffee machine, you know, whoever is operating the machine, whoever puts the machine there, you know, don't want to name brands here, you know, they do again taste a little better than instant coffees, because they're obviously mixed in these machines. So anyway, cut a long story short, I always warn people when they come from Germany to England that I don't have a coffee machine. I actually do almost expect, if I say it a couple of times to my family members that I don't have a coffee machine, they probably feel sorry for me, so eventually one will arrive here. So yeah, why not? But instant coffee, absolute no-go. Which brings us to the very last point for today. Another favorite of mine is porridge. Absolutely love porridge. In Germany, however, people would look at you as if you're seriously... Normally, let's put it this way, we don't eat anything hot or warm in the morning. Germany, I know there's loads of vegans and vegetarians in Germany, but by default, the Germans are a culture of meat eaters. And oftentimes, especially at breakfast, you have all meat types under the sun and bread. That's the staple. The idea is also, you know, you have loads of carbs, you know, you get through the day. So when I then show up with my imported porridge every now and then, which is now a staple of mine, people just look at me and go like, are you okay? Right? Because they think, they associate this with, what's the word? With an illness. Because obviously they think I need to eat porridge because I can't keep anything down. No. And explaining it to them, which I have tried in the past, they then say to me like, you just don't want to be German, do you? Obviously, speaking of salt and vinegar on chips, there is fish and chips. Historically speaking, traditionally speaking, in Germany, many families still have fish every Friday, right? So it's one of those meals. It has religious connotations, and oftentimes religious reasons, obviously. But we would never have a dish called fish and chips. That doesn't mean we're not having fish and have some chips with it. But here it is a dish, fish and chips, and that's all you have. And the Germans wouldn't do it that way, if that makes sense, right? So yeah, fish and chips as a dish and as something that people would associate together, it's not a thing in Germany at all. Germans are weird. I'm the first to admit it. We are very strange at times. And one of the strange things we do is that we tend to bring our own food. We tend to make our food in the morning. I know a lot of people these days do here as well, you know, but the Germans do never buy sandwiches. So you only find packaged sandwiches at train stations, on trains obviously, or at the airport. It is not something that you will find in a supermarket because nobody buys it. People buy the bread and whatever they put on it and make it themselves. And I have seen many people over the years that when they come on holiday in a different country, they still make their bread the morning, you know, they're leaving for something in the hotel because they're a bit stingy. So they don't really want to spend all their money in a pub or at a restaurant. So it is quite common to have handmade sandwiches with you on any journey. That's just the way the Germans are, right? So yeah, again, cultural differences. It's not something that would ever sell well, simply because the concept, most Germans don't understand the concept. If you can make it yourself, why would you pay 3 quid? Preposterous. Anyway, that's all we have time for. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Let me know what else you would like covered on the show, and I will try and do my best. Please subscribe, please like, and share widely. Cheers.